China's global debt trap, the Evergrande Crisis, and the new Silk Road. We're talking about all this in the video today, so let's get right into it. So, if you don't understand how foreign direct aid comes into developing countries in Africa, for example, a lot of the problem of the past China has actually innovated on, and this is how they're able to trick countries in a way with a lot of capital, a lot of investments, a lot of developments for the economy, but there's a lot of backdoors here. And one of the main things they promise is not to do things that Russia and the US have done in the past, like enforce their own political will, but they have a little bit of a backdoor that we'll get into here. And beyond this, essentially what's happened in the past is so many of these countries have gone, okay, we accepted aid from you, but you've changed so much. You've changed the culture here. And what China's essentially doing is they promise with this foreign aid, they go, hey, we're not going to inflict our political will upon you. We're going to let things be normal, but what we're going to do is bring in capital, and we're not necessarily going to hire your labor union. We're not necessarily going to hire your workers. What we're going to do is we're going to invest this money, we're going to build these new things, but it's going to go back to us. And basically, they obviously don't explain it this way, but the way this works is essentially in places like Africa. This also happened in Sri Lanka. What they end up doing is they find strategic areas with natural resources, and this is kind of like a big game of risk. It's a big game of who can control the natural resources. China has now really, in my opinion, pushed past the U.S. And objectively pushed past the U.S. in this space. Not a lot of people are aware of it, and that's why I'm making this video. But how this works, like I was saying, is they bring in a lot of foreign aid. So let's say you want to build something new in Kenya, like they did. This really fast railway system, even faster than it is in the U.S. I can't remember the exact name, but they bring in foreign aid. And the problem that ends up happening is they're not necessarily funding workers. They're not necessarily funding local Kenyan people, right? So they're bringing in their own teams of people. They're bringing in their own equipment. And that's kind of step one, is they put their foothold in you. And they don't do this by just giving you the money and going, oh, we're giving you the money as a gift. A lot of things as a gift in foreign aid always have repercussions. Great example of this. When they founded the kind of Congregation of Africa, the building, China basically said, hey, $200 million, we'll build this for you. And it was the Republic of Africa. That's the building. And they said, hey, we'll build this for you. This all went on in 2012. After it was built, nice, new, shiny building, everything's cool, everyone's working in there, all these political things, all these economic things are going inside of it. And after 5 years, they basically go, hey, wait a second. China basically had a backdoor into all of our servers, feeding data back. So basically it's spying on them in a way, which is, I think, is insane, because basically you can get much better deals if you know the information. It'd be like, if you're a sports fan and one of the coaches is able to hear every single thing that the other coach is saying, right? So all the secret plays, all the plans, these things are a bit exposed. And this is something that's very, very important to realize. And part of their strategy in kind of this global game, the U.S. has talked about this. And again, this video is not to be political. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. These are things that have happened in the past, and moving forward, these are still happening, right? So China right now is actually representative of over 40% of the development of the construction in Africa and in other places around the world. This is why I highly recommend the book, The New Silk Road, because they talk about all these different places. He gave the president gave the speech in Kyrgyzstan, if I remember correctly. But basically what this talks about is all these areas, connecting them together, connecting these trade routes together, and them really grabbing that foothold in. So back to how this works. So you understand now that this is a strategy. Anything that is free, you might want to think a little bit further when they go, hey, here's a bunch of free money, right? Like if anyone has watched that Squid Game series on Netflix, when somebody gives you something for free and it's a little bit fishy, it's typically you need to look a little bit further into it. And it was similar with this building of the Republic of Africa, right? So it was similar with that building where you have all this kind of big gift in capital, but you don't understand the backdoor. And there's always a bit of a backdoor with what they're doing. And really, I'm going to break this down in a few steps, how they really get their foothold in a country by using this debt. So with Sri Lanka, I think is a great example, right at the south of India, right here. I love Sri Lanka. This was, I think, I can't remember exactly how long ago, but basically what they said is, hey, we want to build this port. We want to help your economy. We're going to bring in all this capital, help you guys build out all these things. But again, it's going to be our workers. And in this way, at the time, Sri Lanka had a lot of issues with debt, still do. And when a new president came in, they had already accepted the deal with China. I think it was close to like $200 million, $300 million, somewhere in that ballpark. And basically with this, it was a 1% to 2% interest rate. So different countries have different ratings. So I did a video on sovereign credit ratings. There's companies like Moody's, there's S&P, all these different things that rate different countries. Basically, just like individuals have credit scores, so do countries. But it's a bit different, right? It's based on a lot of different risk factors. Actuaries do these things. So it's a lot of projecting into the future, looking at GDP, looking at all these kind of global economic factors. But I'll have a video on sovereign credit ratings, the link down below in the description if you're curious on that. So make sure to go check that out. And also go check out that book, The New Silk Road. I don't have any plug for that or anything. Maybe I'll leave a link down below in the description. But the point is, basically with this, they came in, they said, hey, we're going to help develop the economy here. And what ends up happening is the country sees it as, oh, China's sending money. Like this is a line, right? So going from China to Sri Lanka, we're sending capital, we're sending money. And you have to remember this is denominated in yuan, which with the yuan, especially with now the CBDC, the yuan, I made a video on how they ban crypto. Basically, they found a competitor and they go, hey, we have our own product. We're just going to ban this here. And you can go check out that video as well. But with this, they control the whole economic policy. This is a massive problem with real estate, and I'll get to that near the end of the video with the Evergrande Crisis and what's going on. They shut down basically, trading shares. Pretty insane. And with this, like I was saying, so many people see it upfront, the free, the gift, right, as just a one way. But really, it's all leading back to China. It's all coming back to them, and they really have this set up very, very well. It's very strategically done, especially if you look at a lot of the detailed cases in Africa, which this video is meant to be a broad overview of this overall topic. But with this, they essentially always create these backdoors, right? So it's never a one-way street. It's always a revolving door. So money's going back to China. And when the new president stepped in, the debt was even worse. They had even more problems. And what they ended up having to do was getting another loan from China just to pay off the interest. So they got a $1 billion loan it was close to 6%. So pretty insane as far as that goes. And that's just one case, right? So essentially what they do is they get their foothold in, and then all these loans are collateralized by natural resources. So that's one thing where, in the past China has struggled with. And Africa is so abundant with natural resources. One of the key components is steel. I think it's called manganese. If I'm saying it correctly, you can correct me in the comments down below. But the majority of it is in Africa. Just like uranium, for example, that's why Uzbekistan is interesting if you're looking at nuclear energy. But before we move on, let's talk about today's sponsor, gold secured currency GSX by Apollo FinTech. Now, this is a very, very interesting project that's combining a lot of the use cases that I absolutely love to see in crypto projects, including a world pay system called Nox. Now, we'll talk about this more in a bit, but gold secured currency is the world's first growth coin and the first coin that rises in asset value. GSX gives its owners the benefits of having a minimum asset value like a stablecoin, but also facilitating growth in value like traditional cryptocurrencies. And they have a lot of these different platforms built out. I previously talked about their overall platform and the Apollo currency. What they're building here is fascinating. Government solutions, commercial products, and consumer products, so many different things going on here. You can see the Nox World Pay and the Nox Exchange here. And they're really innovating from projects like Cardano and XRP that are focused on doing similar type things with governments, but Nox Pay and GSX is actually a bit more developed than these other projects. And they have trust ownership, so GSX holders can trust the beneficiaries of the mineral rights and assets. So this is the actual commodity-backed things, gold secured, right? So GSX is a stablecoin backed by gold and land, mineral rights, and assets, redeemable. So their upcoming program will make GSX redeemable for actual gold, and they're focusing on getting to that $1 mark. If you check out the roadmap and all these other links, you'll be able to find out a lot more. Let's get back to the video. With this, they don't just give you debt. They don't just give you this loan without any collateralization, right? So most cases here, they're not able to pay it back because there's some corruption involved. There's typically, it's not necessarily in the interest of the common people. It's in the interest of the families, of the people that really benefit from this transaction. And this is why there's a lot of problems here. This is why there's many, many issues. And when you look at it from the perspective of, okay, if you see any big buildings being built, like anything over 3 stories high, I'm like 5 stories up right now here in Athens, Greece, but really anything over 3 stories high, most likely it's going to be Chinese development. And in the past, there's been a lot of issues with this, with discrimination against African workers versus Chinese workers, which is just sad to hear. It's I don't even want to get into that. But the point is, there's always kind of these second order consequences that you may, on the surface, you may go, hey, $1 billion, let's do it. Let's build a bunch of things. But in the grand scheme of things, there's a lot of other issues that come, and most countries are not able to pay this off. They then have to get another loan. So think about it like if you were in credit card debt, right? And you have to get like a consolidation loan. And this interest rate, it's really going to hurt you. So basically, you're taking out another loan to pay off your other loans. You're kind of compounding this debt. As Albert Einstein once said, compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who does not pays it. So keep that in mind. So really what you want to understand here is now China is very, very representative of all the development going on in Africa and a lot of emerging markets. And it's very, very important to identify this trend and figure out how you can invest with it. Now, that's a whole nother video. This video is really to kind of bring you a bit of awareness how this global debt trap happens. Again, the biggest thing is they come in promising we're going to give you a better deal than you would get from the US, from France, from Canada, wherever. We're going to give you a better deal. We're going to bring in workers. We're going to bring all these things in, and they're actually exporting. So Africa is importing, but China is exporting more high-tech equipment, so construction equipment type things that are made cheaply in China, brought to Africa, and then Africa is actually exporting to China a lot of these natural resources. It's around, I think, 15% is going to China, so natural resources. And then China bringing in equipment to Africa is close to 16%. And the problem with this whole system is when you basically are locked into a contract, but you're saying, hey, we're not going to hire your workers. We're going to bring our workers. We're going to bring our labor into this. All these like normal labor prices that would be, if you have a budget for a project and, you don't see the details here, somebody's wage who's normally, let's say $5 an hour might be $25 an hour if you don't look at the fine print. So that's something that's very, very important to understand in kind of this perpetuating cycle that ends up happening in a lot of these countries, in a lot of these cases. So beyond this, the things that I really focus on are, what's going on in the future, what's going on with this whole situation. And that's why I think this article is quite interesting. So Chinese lending in Africa, all these different things. So although it only crossed 10,000 GDP per capita markup for the middle income country, recently China is the world's second largest economy. For many countries from Asia to Africa and parts of Europe, China has become the most important economic partner. In 2009, the country eclipsed the United States to become the biggest trade partner for African countries in aggregate. It's the largest bilateral lender for public sector loans across African continent. See Figure 1. So Figure 1 is down here. I thought this was quite interesting to look at. So this is what I was talking about with French aid. Yes, it did peak up here, but a lot of these are second order. They're long-term effects. And when you look at this just from a monetary policy standpoint, and you contrast what the U.S. has done with their trillions of dollars of printing just to prop up the economy versus China is, I think it's around, let me check this real quick. It's close to 300 billion in Africa. They cover over 40% of infrastructure projects, like I was saying. And then this kind of resulted in 10,000 Chinese companies in Africa worth trillions of dollars. So this is a massive problem because, again, they essentially have a monopoly around developments here. So they have these footholds, and when countries are not able to pay off their debt, they acquire these natural resources. And that's just the first part. That was in the steps. The first part is they kind of get those natural resources. They get their foothold in there, and then they go, hey, we're not going to just have cheap labor in China. We're going to use these nations for cheap labor. So they're able to monetize that. And with that, then they're able to go, okay, what about roads? What about train stations? What about all these different things that basically connect the future of these emerging countries? And this is really that new Belt and Road system. That's why I highly recommend that book, The New Silk Road. Beyond this, they kind of go even a step further and start tapping into things like imports and exports and kind of taking a cut in the whole overall pie. So that's kind of my little rant on what's going on here. I'll definitely do a more detailed video. I'm planning to do a bit of a different camera setup, so it's not all screen recorded. This one I was actually planning to not do a screen record at all and just do it from a camera, but kind of moving around with different places here in Greece, so I don't have a proper camera setup. But when I'm in a place for a longer time, like I usually am, I'm usually in whatever country for at least a month, then I'll start doing more of those and more kind of high quality type videos. But these are more conversational, more to kind of bring your awareness, and then we can go more detailed into individual topics. So far in the video, if you have any questions, any comments, let me know in the comment section down below. We also have the Telegram group. You can reach out down there, group of like-minded investors. And beyond this, let's move on to this. So the Evergrande Crisis, I thought this was very, very interesting. So sizing up to be a big mess. As I talked about earlier, the economic policy in China is completely controlled by the government, which you can also say in the U.S., but there is a bit more transparency, I would say, in the U.S. in a lot of ways, right? Social credit scores, all these different things we do not have, and China does. So it's a bit more of control, especially with the CBDC. It's making it even more interesting because you're able to add behavioral economics into the monetary policy in China with the CBDC. But the Evergrande Crisis, I think, kind of exposed a lot of this, right? So things are going on behind the curtain, and the curtain opens up when a situation happens like this. China's been well known for having a lot of these ghost cities. We also see this in other places like Turkey, where a bunch of this money gets created, just kind of prop up the numbers like GDP. When you control all these things kind of behind, and you can artificially manipulate an economy versus having it be natural growth. This is where you see a lot of issues in a system, right? So when, for example, if you're in a forest and somebody comes and dumps a bunch of toxic waste in there, you're going to have a lot of these disproportions in the natural side of things, right? So that's very, very important to understand. Natural economy, in my opinion, should be free market capitalism. But that's not necessarily what's going on with the CCP, right? I don't like to say that a lot. And again, like I said, this video is not bashing China. This is just supposed to be kind of objective things that are going on. And to close this video out, I figured I'd talk a little bit about this, what we saw today. This reminds me of the whole the Robinhood GameStop thing, because Evergrande shares are suspended. So that is absolutely crazy. When you get into an asset, you want to look at the liquidity, you want to look at the shares of a company, right? And that's a beautiful thing about blockchain is there is no suspending a project. They trade 365, 24/7. It doesn't matter if anyone, there's no off switch to these things, right? But with something like Evergrande, there is, right? And in this case, I think it's a Japanese company that's actually buying a lot of this. So they're kind of reversing the situation that we were just talking about. But personally, I would not invest in Evergrande. I think they're way over leveraged. A lot of problems there. But if you guys have an alternative opinion, I'm always open to it. The debt-laden firm is reportedly set to sell 51% stake in its property management business for $5 billion to a rival, Hobson Development. So pretty crazy. Everything going on. I will definitely do more videos on this. But I thought it was very, very interesting to cover. That's all for this video. If you enjoyed it, like, subscribe button. Oh, somebody's singing here, so I think I'll wrap it up. So like I said, let me know in the comment section if you have any questions. You can also join the Telegram group. That's all for this one. We have all the links to everything down below in the description. Make sure to look that through. And that's all for this one. Invest global. And until next time.